Okay.
Tape's on. I'll turn on the microphones. I just
I
turned them
have a
on.
green light.
They should be on now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you, Art, for testing. I appreciate it. Okay. The, what's the date today? June 19th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting is called to order. The first item on the agenda is a variance application from Doug Rollins. That is going to be continued until next month. He needs to have representation that is not available at this point. Right, Dari?
That's right, yes.
Okay. The next one we're going to hear in order of is the variance application for, was it Kevin Lacasse? And you want to come up and talk to it?
I'm sorry, Kevin, I'm just going to look at Kevin.
Good evening, I'm Jack McCormick from the Zoning from Dalton.
Okay.
I thought Kevin would be here. I thought we're third in the agenda, so maybe he took those things.
Okay, well,
So,
all right.
your permission.
So that's fine. We'll do the other one first.
Thanks.
And,
Very much.
okay. So Sinclair Construction is up first. Do we have someone here to talk to it? Okay.
How's everyone today?
We are doing it.
This is the first time I've been in front of this board, and I don't know your names, so I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Andrew St. Goddard. And
I'm Mari Princiata.
Mari,
Mari Princiata.
Jim,
Matt Gilman.
Matt, and Eric. Okay, and Chairman?
Chairman.
Great. Okay. I have two approaches that I want to do in this. One, I wanted to talk about the possibility of overturning the inspector's decision. And then if you disagree with me on that, which I hope you won't, then I'd like to discuss the variance, why it would apply for a variance. In the event to make this go smoother for Dory, if they show up and we're only through that first part, I'm willing to sit down and stand back up again.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so what I'd like to do is just kind of get you guys a little caught up with an overview of what's going on.
Could I just, I just want to mention, we don't have an appeal of an administrative decision application from you, an application form. And this was noticed as a variance application, and that's, how it was submitted to me. I do see there's language in here about an appeal of an administrative decision, but I don't believe it was noticed properly to conduct such a hearing.
Okay. Under the set, you're right. I didn't know if you had a separate one, but I did put it in the requested actions as one of two actions.
So, okay, so let me just ask a point of order. So in that case, are we allowed to hear a notice of
I think
challenge against that?
you're certainly, this is how I would recommend doing it. Treat it as a variance application.
Okay.
If you, in looking at it, feel that a variance is not necessary, then that can be your decision, and that essentially would have the effect.
And it would even have to be an overturn, then we could throw it back to.
But let's look at that. We can talk about that more if that looks like it's going to be an issue.
Okay.
Does that work? Okay.
I'm fine with backing up if we have
Okay.
to, whatever we're going to do. Inspector LaPlante has been incredibly generous with working with us on everything we've done, so I have no issues with him whatsoever. And I think he's just siding on the side of being a little bit cautious because we're in a situation that may not follow. But so let's back up a little bit. Let's get you up to par on what's going on. The intent is, everyone's familiar with smoking Baltic, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay, the building, I think, can be said without much argument that was one of the more, I hate to use the word dilapidated, but certainly going in that direction. And the owner of the building, Rick Patel, who happens to be right here, has done an incredible amount of work to the building to revitalize it. And we're not just talking aesthetics. We've got structural things that have been done in there, structural engineers have been brought in. He's bringing the building up to code and up to par for a building that's been neglected for a long time. So when we approached the outside of the building, we started to get to the point where we were trying to get the facades outdone. And we came to Inspector LaPlante for the sign requests. And the thing with this building is the building has two facades. It's a corner lot, so the store has store frontage on two sides, two roads, two street fronts. And by definition, your facade is the side of the building facing the street. So what he has done for us is in this, you can see the original end of the building, gable ends facing Silver Street, or Silver Lake Street, and then the sign that he allowed. He allowed this under section 2333. What we went for was the second request. Yeah.
That first slide, this is currently there.
That is currently there. And a lot, man. Like I said, he's been very good working with us.
And that's intended to stay.
That's intended to stay. Okay, the second facade is the side that faces Laconia Road. And this was the before. This is where we're after. Okay, so this is the side facing the primary street.
Can you guys see that?
Okay? And of course, I mean, it doesn't look much like a business. So our intention is to put the sign up here. Okay? Inspector LaPlante has denied that based upon 2.33 in your zoning ordinances, which reads as follows. Additional signage, which this is based off another ordinance that says you're allowed one sign per business and not. And 233 says additional signage, where needed, may be posted on the business provided is limited to 10% of the square footage of the facade, which is why he allowed the first one. That sign is less than 10% of the face of the facade. But in his interpretation of this law, he says he seems to think there's only one sign allowed, because that's been the mode of operation in the town of Tilton. They've allowed one additional sign. But because there are two facades and two sides to the building, I believe the ordinance does address that. Because the ordinance does not say an additional sign may be allowed. It says additional signage where needed may be posted on a business provided that's less than 10%. So when we talk about the second facade, the sign we intend to do is 60 square feet. The facade allows for a sign of 92 square feet. We're only asking for 66% of what I say the ordinance allows. That being said, where your quasi-judicial board, if you go by the letter of the law or the word of the law, it simply states, additional signage where needed may be posted. The ordinance doesn't say it has to be accepted by any particular board, any special exception, or any variance. It says it may be posted.
So this is in the mixed use district?
This is in
Yeah. GC. Sorry, mixed use. I'm
Mixed
looking at the
use
first one, yeah.
district?
Yeah, mixed use.
Hold on one second, please. Before you do that, I have the district. It is in the RG, RC, and GC, Regional Commercial, Resort Commercial, and General Commercial District.
No, it's not. It's in the mixed use district. Those regulations apply because it's on Route 3.
Okay.
So it's in the mixed use district?
Yeah, but the
these
regulations
regulations-
of those districts apply because it's on Route 3.
Is that,
It's stated in there.
it's stated someplace?
Yeah.
in there?
Yeah. inspectable plan.
Oh, exception, okay.
So
Okay.
that's why I don't think it needs variance. I think this ordinance allows for it. This ordinance is designed for this particular situation, this particular case.
So, explain more about where needed.
Okay.
Why is this needed?
Why is it needed? Because of the circumstances of it being a corner lot and the building being situated not at an angle, okay? It's impossible to get coverage of the building to present itself with representation from both views. Also, you're trying to get the community itself to blend in. I don't think that leaving it without a sign is going to have it blend in with the other businesses in that area. So as you go down 106, Laconia Road, each building has a sign there. And a good percentage of them have pole signs. A lot of them that are digitally moving and colored and whatnot. This is a flat backlit sign, which is in keeping with what's in the area.
So in the zoning
Ordinance, yeah.
ordinance, it says that one sign pertaining to use of the premises on which is placed not exceeding a total area of 40 square feet. There's one tenant, correct, in the building? One tenant?
Yes.
So it says it should not exceed a total area of 40 square feet. And then,
Which would refer to the original sign or the pole sign.
so I would take it the other way, that this one was primary, and then if additional signage were required, it would be limited to 10% of the square footage.
Correct. So the sign we're talking about is additional signage, not primary.
No, you just told me that that was under additional signage. You said that it was, that the inspector of plant approved it under the additional signage.
Okay.
Am I missing, I mean,
This sign
Yeah.
was approved by inspector of plan under section 2.333 as additional signage to the pole sign that is at the property line between this property and the adjacent property.
So you've already got approved additional signs. We're talking
Right.
about.
We're talking about the-
Additional.
This is a second additional sign because there are two facades. And that was his contention of not approving it, saying that we've already got one additional sign.
so you have a pole sign that is less than 40 square feet
Correct.
existing. You have an additional signage on one facade.
Right. But again, the words say additional signage. It doesn't say an additional sign. By letter of the word, it does not say one extra sign. It says additional sign where needed. Because it's a corner lot and there's two facades of the building, we need two signs.
So going back to where needed,
Mhm.
is it needed? You're contending that when you're standing on Laconia Road, driving by, whatever, and you're looking at the front,
Mhm.
the main entrance side of the building,
Mhm.
there's no signage, or what, according to the picture, I know the pole sign's there, but.
No, the pole signs, you're looking at the end of it. You're right, there's
Yeah,
no
it's
signage.
way off to the side.
And you're looking at the end. The sides are east and west, and you're looking from the north.
So, yeah, if you're driving into Tilton, you're gonna first come to the pole sign.
No, you first come to this.
And, no, if you're coming.
From
into Tilton-
Laconia.
Oh,
Right.
into from
Yeah.
Laconia. Yes,
You're
you
gonna
would
first
see,
the pole sign.
you would see the pole sign, correct.
And if you're driving out of Tilton towards Laconia, you're going to first see the new sign on that side of the building.
Right.
And then you're going to see the pole sign
Right,
as you're heading in that direction.
right.
So coming from both directions, you're going to see signage. for
Yes.
the business.
I agree. However, you have no signage over the business. And every other business on that strip, every other business on that strip has signage on the front of the building.
But you made a choice as to where to put that first sign. I mean, really, I mean.
That's a
it-
pre-existing non-conforming use if you'd ask me. But I would, that
No,
sign's
the
been
one
there
on-
forever.
No, the new one.
Oh,
You
the-
made a decision to put it on that side of the wall versus the front of the wall.
Well, there was one there, but when we remodeled,
I think that was his comment,
see,
right?
there was one here.
Go ahead,
So
there's a
when we
question.
remodeled, you end up with absolutely no
Alright.
signage.
Did you,
Yeah, I think it's important to identify what's going on, what's being asked for here.
right,
I mean, let's look again at the way the case was introduced or placed on the agenda from Sinclair, starting with Tilton Zoning Article 2.2, but to allow for additional signage, 60 square feet where 20 square feet of allowable signage remains at 485 Laconia Road. So that the first sign that's on the side was allowed under the allowable signage.
yeah.
And we're taking the applicant at his word that there's 91.6 square feet, which is, which he's saying is 10% of the facade. So that means he gets 91.6 square feet. And that sign on the side takes up about 72 square feet, leaving about 20 square feet of allowable.
No, sir. You're misunderstanding.
No, I'm telling you. I mean, that's what it is. That's how it's written in the agenda, and that's how it's written in the zoning ordinance.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
Respectfully. And I'm going to explain it the same way that Mr. LaPlante and I have discussed it. Okay?
Well,
I'm going to explain what he
okay.
said to
But
me.
you're saying Al's telling you have 0 feet of allowable square footage allowed. So if you want to go with that, I guess.
Absolutely. That's what he's saying. He's saying that this facade here on the gable end, allowed for 72 square feet. And we got a sign that was 60 feet, so it fit ordinance 233. He is taking it that one facade is all you get per building. But by definition of facade, it's the side facing the street. This building has 2 facades. This is where Alan and I disagree. Okay, he says,
No.
Al reviewed this agenda. He knows that this posting says what it says, and he's in agreement with it.
So the facade of a building is the one that faces the street, your address. So it would be Laconia
well, it
Road.
doesn't say that. It just says it faces the street. It's by your definitions. It doesn't say it faces the street of the address. It says the side of the building facing the street.
No, it doesn't say anything about that, it just says facade.
Do you have definitions there?
Yeah, there is a definition.
Yes,
Yes, there
that's
is.
where I was
Right,
pulling
right,
from.
right.
Page 6,
I just don't have a copy.
facade, the exterior front wall, face of the building,
The exterior front wall,
front wall,
it says front wall.
according to the,
The exterior front wall face of a building.
So if I could, I mean, based on that, he said the front of his building is about 92 square feet, and he's used 72 square feet of that already.
No, we haven't used any of it.
Yes, you have. Then how did your side that's on the side of the building get permitted? Under allowable
Because
additional
that's
signage.
less than 10% of that
That's not
side.
the facade.
That's not the facade. The facade says it's the
I mean,
front. It's the front wall facing. Right?
Well,
Definitely.
it was handed to us facing the street.
The facade it says it's the exterior front wall face of a building. It does not refer to any street information. It says
Okay.
the front wall face of a building.
Do you happen to define front?
So it's always been, for me, it's always been the one that you deliver your post office, you mail to, right?
Okay.
So your address.
Okay.
And I think that's where Dari was going.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to choose the side of the building to be what you call the facade, then you'll effectively reduce. You'll go down from, right, that's less than 900 something.
Yes,
Okay, so
But
I don't know why you want to fight to have that called the, or.
because the sign permit for the sign that's up there was done off the square footage of the side of the gable end.
And what's the square footage of that?
Came up to 78, I believe.
Okay,
78
so if
square
you and Al are in agreement that you're gonna call that the facade, then now, we will no longer say that 91.6 square feet is what would be allowed under additional signage, but it would be 70-something square feet that would be allowed under additional signage. So it doesn't seem like it would be to your benefit to argue to have that sidewall counted as the facade.
Well, the way I read 233, to me, doesn't, you don't get to, when you're putting the sign up on the facade, they talk about putting it on the facade. If you've got 92 feet on the front, you don't get to use that facade to put the sign on the back of the building, so it's to put the sign on that side.
So,
To me,
so what you're saying is that we shouldn't have allowed you to put the sign on the side and that has to come up and it has to go on the front?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yes, it is.
No,
I mean,
what
you're
I'm
saying
saying is
now that, you're saying that the allowable additional signage that becomes allowed as a 10% of the front of the building or the facade of the building, you're saying has to go on the front now. And we allowed you to put it on the side.
What I'm saying is the building
Okay.
should be viewed as having two
Oh,
facades.
okay.
If-
Point of order, go ahead, Eric.
I'm just reading this 2.33.
Read it.
Yep,
Up to a point. So the first one sentence. Additional signage, where needed, may be posted on the business provided that it is limited to 10% of square footage of the facade.
right.
To me, it's a vague definition, but it's saying on the business. doesn't say
Anywhere.
Anywhere in the business. I don't care if you put it in the basement,
Mhm,
on the back side, the right side, the left side, the front side.
mhm.
But the measurement base for that is the facade. The facade defined by the town of Tilton is the exterior front wall face of a building. So just for simplicity's sake, if the front of this building, according to definitions, 1,000 square feet.
Yeah,
And I don't know. And what was the percentage on that?
It's
10%.
So let's just, I'm just keeping it simple.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not a
10%.
mathematician.
Yep,
If you take 10% of 1,000 square feet, it's 100 square feet of additional signage
right,
that you're allowed to put on that building,
right,
wherever he desires. And then he can put it on the business. He
yes.
can't attach it, he can't put another sign on, a signpost somewhere else. It has to be attached to the business.
Right,
That's just how I'm interpreting it. So,
okay.
So what you're saying is taking the facade measurement and making all calculations based on the facade measurement.
Right,
That's what I'm saying. Just because the town defines facade as the front wall of the building,
yeah,
and that additional part says based on the square footage of the facade, and I just kept simple. I don't know what the measurements are of this building. I'm just,
But what you're saying, what I'm hearing from Al, this building has two facades and they should be handled separately. Is that what you're?
It is, because the wording of the law, the wording of 233, in my interpretation of it, states it, that additional signage where needed, additional signage, not
On
an
the-
additional sign.
On the facade.
on the facade.
Right, but we're coming apart on the facade. To me, even the front of the building is a vague determination, when, to me, this has two fronts. You've got two street fronts.
So,
But if we
per,
deny this, I can go for the variance. I can argue the variance.
so at this point, we are looking at, this is 91.76 square, 92? So 92 square feet of which you've used 70,
No, we've used 61.
That's what the other sign is?
My calculation based on your building permit was 72.
Okay, 72.
So
okay.
72. So in this case, you have 20 square feet of which to put signage without requiring anything from us,
Okay.
correct? Do you all agree with that? You agree with that? So the question is, so you have 20 square feet of which to do, and now do you have,
So then I would argue for variance.
so you want a variance from the square foot to increase the square foot? Is that applicable at this point? Or is it for
I think
something
we're
else? Okay.
basically where we should be now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Get there.
okay. So, 20 square feet, are we okay for time?
I can step
I mean,
down
I
and-
talked with Sewer, and they did mention that if we had to stay up here, they would accommodate that. So
Okay.
it looks like that's what we're gonna have.
We're at a good breaking point if you want me to step aside and let them go, because then I can.
No, I don't think we should.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
All right, so then let's discuss a variance then on the way you interpret that. So based upon this denial of 2.333, the mitigating circumstances in this case, Smoke Barley has been performing some long-needed restorations on the building for the community, in which one would say is one of the most needy buildings on that strip. He's taken strides to create pleasing curb appeals and combat the high-profile positions on the building. These renovations have been desperately needed. A variance has to be granted under the 5 requirements of the variance. The variance wouldn't be contrary to public interest. It would be in line with the identification afforded it would be in line with the identification afforded to other businesses on the strip. In other words, all the other businesses have a sign on the front of the building. This would pull this building in line with what's already there. The spirit of the ordinance is observed where the ordinance is clear to limit the oversignage of a business facade. We've shown that we're only asking for an additional 40 square feet of signage. And the signage we're asking for is backlit signing box sign, where if you were to get just the cutout letters that are popular now, we would be within the confines of your restrictions. So you're counting a lot of white space that if you deduct that, we would beat this. Substantial justice would be done where the building is in question has store frontages on 2 streets, and we're only requesting that the business have the representation on the street frontages. The values of the surrounding properties would not diminish, whereas the sign is in the design of what is on that strip. It's not gonna, you're not putting neon in an area that has no neon. So it's not going to diminish the value of the building. If anything, I think it'll bring up the value. The work he's done has brought up the value. But the sign itself will keep it from looking as a non-commercial enterprise. The literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship and the lack of business identification on the front of the building. I don't think any reasonably prudent person perceived that building as looking commercial without a store frontage sign on it. So there'd be no fair or substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application. I don't think we're breaking anything you're trying to do in that community. That community is a commercial strip. We're not putting a sign on the side of a house in a residential area. The request proposed signage is a reasonable request because it is in line with everything there. So I believe that I meet the 5 criteria of a variance for the store frontage for signage on the store.
Can I see that picture, the other picture, not the, just a side picture, just one more time? Okay, are there actually stairs over here? to get into it?
There's going to be a delivery ramp stairs that you put in there.
Okay. All right, and so is,
This,
that's the main entrance, right?
the main entrance has actually had a cover set over and a handicap ramp.
Okay.
That's up.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this? second? Good? Okay, so we'll discuss it amongst ourselves at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the variance is for an additional, for our calculation, an additional 40 feet to bring it up to a 60-foot additional signage to be put on the front face of the building, or wherever. Any comments, questions from you guys?
That he has a sign coming on the pole, coming across, coming from the east, heading to the west. He has a sign there. I don't know how big it is. It's a lit sign.
Go with the whole sign.
Full sign, yeah.
He now has a sign coming from the other direction. Quite as big. You can see it.
Right.
Contrary to what he said, his immediate neighbor to the right, where his real estate business does not have a front sign on the building. He only has a pole sign.
Okay.
So, in a way, if you give him, it's to the business, but unfair, you know, that he's got another sign,
Right.
third sign on that building.
You can put a third sign on it, just has to be 20 square feet.
Right. Yes.
So, you know, I worry about people looking left at that sign, at that intersection.
Okay.
Still mulling.
Still mulling it. Jim, you have anything else? Matt?
The only, I mean, I think, as you were bringing up, that as you're driving from Laconia into Tilton in that direction, you're going to first pass by the pole sign, and the only time you're going to see the front of that building without any indication what it is when you're standing in front of it.
Right.
And that picture does not take into account the pole sign, which is kind of far away from the front. So it does make it look like it doesn't have a sign. It may not be a business, but that would be not true context, because you would have to be able to see the sign as you're driving by.
So, how about if we kind of talk through it this way? So, first one, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. All right. So, must duly and in a marked degree be contrary to the public interest or injurious to public rights. The variance must unduly and in a marked degree conflict with the basic zoning objectives of the ordinance. Does it alter the essential character of the locality or threaten public health, safety, or welfare?
I don't feel that it would.
Where do you mean?
So I'm actually, we got called on this, so I'm actually going to try and go through this, each one. And do you want to look at it? This is,
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just, I need my paper back after you read it.
Let's do this.
I have a copy.
That's all right. He'll just take the picture.
Chairman Princiano?
Yep.
If you guys are about to go into the phase where you sort of examine the criteria, maybe first you just want to put it out to see if there's any public comment. It's up to you when you do that. I just want to remind you not to.
Oh, I did ask if there was
Oh,
any.
you did? I'm sorry.
I did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
And there was none,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. At least I didn't.
Okay.
Miss
Can you
that?
miss this one?
unless we missed it.
All right. Okay, so, does it alter the essential character of the locality or threaten public health, safety, or welfare? So I don't, even though the Realtor office next to it doesn't have the same stuff, I don't think it really, that strict, I don't think that really changes the character of that area. Spirit of the ordinance is observed. So the ordinance is for general signage in the general commercial and additional signage as per 2.3.3, right? So it, right. Right. So, spirit of the ordinance, what do you think?
I think it is. I mean, he's going to put a sign up there either way. It's either going to be 20 square feet or 60 if you give the variance. So we're meeting within the spirit of what it was intended there. But
As far as the math, if you was to put a 20 square foot sign
Yeah.
on that side, the front side of the building,
Yeah,
that would be completely within.
you wouldn't even need a
It
variance.
wouldn't even need to be.
Right,
What he's asking for is an additional
40,
40 square feet.
right.
And that's what we're talking about, the additional 40 square feet.
Right,
Really.
right.
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
The spirit of the ordinance. And I think it's fair to say this business, I was going to say this business is unique in that its structure is unique because it has two facades, but
It doesn't have two facades.
two
Two street sides.
street sides.
Yeah,
But the real estate company has the same characteristic, same street, opposite side.
right.
I don't remember what it was like when it was a nursery as far as signage. They stripped that building down when they changed from nursery to that. I just don't remember what it looked like.
Chairman,
Yep,
I believe the applicant did have a, if we could, he came over here to mention something about the real estate business. What was it you were saying?
Do you mind, I know I'm not supposed to intervene on this, but a few of the things you say aren't exactly true. I'm pretty sure about this. The Marcello Group has both a pole sign, and on their front triangle over their roof, over their dormer, they have a flush box sign. And that building is actually angled to the corner where his building is square. Those two things you're basing opinions on.
okay, so Eric, you're sitting there going like this.
Google Maps looking at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Not up to date then.
So do you feel like the spirit of the ordinance is observed? You're not? Or they're asking for excessive?
No, I was just going back, I'm gonna find the, what you said there, sorry. Well, you're talking the spirit of the, so
Yeah, it says-
It refers back up in this document that you have.
It says to criteria 1 and then the
Right.
zoning ordinance itself.
The last line of section 1 is the ZBA should examine whether the variance would A, alter the essential character of the locality, or B, threaten public health, safety, or welfare.
Right.
The only thing I would be concerned about are people being distracted at that intersection.
Okay. What about substantial justice? Each case must individually determined by board members. Perhaps the only guiding rule is that any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. Injustice must be capable of relief by granting variance.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Was there a sign on that side of the building before?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there wasn't one, and there was one on the
There was one on the
end.
other side also,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But it was smaller.
Okay.
Or banners. Those,
There were mounted, it was a mounted metal sign on this front. It's actually still over there. We're not against you guys doing a site visit either. The metal sign's out back.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right. So is there an injustice because of the, so this is not, right. Any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by the gain to the general public? this is the first time we're doing it this way,
It's okay.
so.
I've got a lot of years on these
yeah,
boards.
So,
I'd like to make comments, I'm biting my tongue so bad.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's hurting the general public to put a slightly bigger sign up. I don't see that injustice is being done to the public.
Okay,
I agree. Is there any injustice to the owner if we don't approve it?
well, they could still put a 20 square foot sign up. So I don't see that it really, like, diminishes the general public, though.
I don't see it hurting the general public.
The
No.
general public. Eric, yeah, you want to weigh
No,
in?
it's free.
Okay, the values of the surrounding properties are not diminished, so does the signage affect, do you believe the signage would affect the general?
I am.
Okay. Literal enforcement of the,
Whoop,
oh,
Sorry.
all right, that's
The
right.
only thing I'm worried about would be with the value of the property across the street go down, if it's, I don't think it's residential right there.
No, it's multiple.
Next one down.
Beltway, okay, no. I was just thinking of the bright light,
Yeah, I was wondering what that,
but he just said Beltway, I forgot about that.
There is a residential set, maybe, I don't know, 100
It's a
or
little bit
150
more
feet off the road.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so, carry on.
Okay, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship.
I mean, this is where it's a hardship. That's what this is about.
Right.
If we take it letter of the law, then would he be unfairly injured by it? I think that's what it's getting at.
Right. I think you're right.
I don't know what a 20 square foot sign would look like, so I didn't have a hard time
Yeah.
speaking to that. I mean, if it- like
2 foot
2
by
feet
10.
by 10 feet, yeah, and that
2
seems
foot by
fairly
10.
small to me for
Or-
a street front sign, but.
Yeah.
4 by 5. How big is this table? About the size of this table?
That's about 4 and
Right
a
here.
half by 6 or 12.
I was thinking right here. Like this across.
That small, the second half there.
Yeah, like somewhere around this size. So is there a hardship? There are 2 signs. He has the ability to put another smaller sign. Does that constitute a hardship that the sign is smaller?
Argument, I guess, can be made that it can't be seen. You know, a small sign wouldn't be seen from the road, and you're squinting to read a smaller sign. I don't know. This is my first time.
That's okay. That's okay. Love input.
So I'm having a hardship issue.
Huh?
If I'm having a hardship issue.
No,
Yeah,
Because he can put a 20-foot sign.
right.
But is that going to be worth it? Is that going to be a distraction? If it's too small, it's going to be a distraction.
Is that our problem?
Well,
Well,
if
if they
you
put
go
the
back-
sign-
if you go-
Public safety.
if you go back to number 1, it counteracts the public safety part of it, where I was using, where if it's too small and you can't read it, are you going to be, what's that say?
Even with the other signage?
If you don't know what it says, you might think it says something different. I don't know, man.
How sometimes you see a sign that's like an old English, is that an old English font on that side?
On the full sign?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, so.
Gothic.
Yeah, so it's like, to me, sometimes it's hard to read. Where the sign on the Silver Lake side of the building is pretty easy.
The new one's not though. The one that's on the pole sign is. The new one's like.
Right, no, that one's easy to read, but where like, if you're coming,
Right.
that smoke early, to me, it's difficult to read.
How big was the old sign on the front of the building?
4 foot by 5. No, there was a metal sign.
So that's the size you could still have. Do you have a full picture?
It's not, I think you can see, I think you can see where it was. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, it was originally It was originally right in this area, the basement was over. But the sign itself is still behind the building.
It's right here.
Yeah, it was right there. We're talking about putting it up.
Oh, that's on the same side, so.
You want to put it up now where the windows are on the
windows are,
second
yeah.
story? Sure, just can't see that.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Like that.
Okay.
So, no fair or substantial relationship between the general public purposes, the proposed use is a reasonable one. And if in strict conformance with the ordinance and variance is therefore necessary to, dual references of the property being distinguished from other properties in the area solidifies repeated court statements that the special conditions are found in the property itself and not in the individual plight of the applicant, depending on the variance being sought. These special conditions can include as-built environment. So, do we have any other comments about hardship? Do we have any comments about this at all? Do we have any concerns? Any more discussion on any of the 5 criteria?
Is that like my opinion on the whole thing? Is that what you're saying?
So we're going to have a vote. In order to pass this, the applicant must have proven all 5 of the criteria. So, and each one of us would have to agree. So we should vote. If we agree with that they have proven all 5, we can say yay or nay. But question?
Yeah.
What?
It's more of a direct clarification, but
Okay.
can we ask the applicant, if you don't, if, what is the hardship that is on this business if you don't approve this?
They didn't have to.
You can.
I don't know, are we allowed to do that at this point? What I'm saying is,
Yeah, it's up to you guys.
what's the unnecessary hardship? He's allowed a 20-foot sign.
Mhm.
What's the unnecessary hardship if we allow
I mean,
this?
he did provide, I think, 2 responses on that, one handwritten and one typed. But if you guys want to ask him to further respond, that's your
We're doing less than 30 seconds.
So good. So go ahead. I mean,
Okay, the hardship itself could cover the cost to the client as any lost sales. And any lost sales obviously can be reflected against any form of advertisement, print or otherwise. We may not be able to prove he's going to have it. However, the ordinance in its entirety, or the requirement in its entirety, says that his loss has to be offset by the gain to the community. And there is none by denying him. So even if he has
so that's,
$1 or so worth of loss, it meets that criteria.
no, that's not.
Read it again. It's offset by the loss. His loss has to be offset by the gain of the community.
So that's substantial justice. That's not hardship.
All right, well, again, the hardship would fall just in the fact of identifying his building, the commercial appearance to the building, and any lost revenue therefore.
Okay. Are we done talking? Are you ready for a vote? Do I have a motion? We're still talking? We're still talking. So,
I'm just trying to figure out the 20, 60, 20, 60. You allowed 20.
he's allowed 20. He's allowed 20. So, my perspective is that he can have signage on the front of this building. It doesn't represent a hardship because he can still have signage. It's just not as big as he wants. That's my opinion.
we would be would it end up being less attractive by constraining them into a smaller signage? I mean, we're like, by saying no to this, we're not stopping a sign from being on the front of the building. There's going to be a sign on the front of the building.
Right.
By stopping it, are we making it a less attractive area by forcing it into a set of constraints? I
Is that,
don't know if it's a question or a statement. I don't know.
right, no, it's a good question, and the question is like, is that our issue?
Hmm.
Yeah, so, I don't know. You think, Jim? Still thinking. Are we ready? I can? Oh, all right, Aiden. All right. Okay, I guess I didn't realize I could also make a motion.
Well, usually the chairman doesn't, but you
I
can.
I know. So is anyone comfortable at this point making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We'll take a vote
So you take what's your motion?
that we vote on this.
All right,
No,
you say, whether you say I make a motion that we either approve.
Oh, okay. I make a motion
that
that we approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Okay, it is second for the sake of discussion. Eric, talk away.
No, I'm still trying to get over that hardship hurdle. To me, to grant the variance, it has to pass all five
Yes.
of the criteria.
Yes,
I'm having a hard time with hardship.
which is what I
No
said.
pun intended, but I'm having a hard
Hard
time.
time with hardship for the owner.
Hardship in
If
general,
it's
yeah.
not passed, whatever you think hardship is equal to
You still get the sign.
He still gets a sign. That's the problem, is he still gets the sign. It's not like he's being denied a sign. It's just on his bid. Right. Any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve a variance for signage to increase it by 40 square feet, additional signage. All those in favor? All those opposed? Nay. Okay.
So what was it, 3-1?
3 to 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Folks, thank you very
Yes,
much.
done.
This is the most pure form of government, and I think this is what the forefathers intended to have. And in lieu of payment,
We'll
I'm
get
going to
it.
give you a thank you, because I know your time is worth money and you don't get it.
It'll be painful for the first couple that we do. So we'll figure it out.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right.
Guys, I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right. Sorry, Lucas. Yep, you're up.
I don't mind holding up an attorney.
I know, first time, I know. I apologize. Okay.
My name is Jackie Kermick. I'm a lawyer in Ashland.
Yeah.
The record, I never worked back after 5 o'clock. Sorry about that.
I don't either.
Sorry about that. Great. I think the first order of business is we don't have a full board. The question was raised, do we waive having
Right.
a full board?
Yep.
And I think one gentleman on my far right was the planning board also. So the question is there a conflict in that situation? And frankly, from our seat, if you took that point of view, you never fill these boards anyhow. Because small towns, there's inherent double hat wearing. So from our standpoint, we have no objection. So we'd like to have a seat tonight, okay? I'd like to look into
Well, I
something.
think Eric might want to, if Chairman
Okay.
Pensky, I think Eric did want to bring that up to start.
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring up to the board that I do sit on the planning board, in this case has been before the planning board. And I call Dari on that today
Okay.
to get clarification of do I need to recuse myself from this case because I have voted on this case. I'm not saying which way I voted on this case. I don't know how many times we voted on this case for different things, but it's been before me, and and I think there were like six or seven criteria that I need to meet or have to think about whether to recuse myself or not on this.
Yeah, it seemed to me like state statute basically kind of gives some guidance on when you should recuse yourself, and says or that member would be disqualified for any reason to act as a juror upon the trial of the same matter. So in other words, how would it be handled in a jury situation? And I won't read all 7 of them, but I think the only one that Eric and I thought out, this is something we kind of have to think about is, a potential juror may be asked whether he or she, and then the 4th one is, has directly or indirectly given an opinion or formed an opinion. So that's the one that Eric was contemplating.
So, where we heard this last year, with the exception of Matt, haven't we all?
Yeah,
in
and
some
I think the
level
other
done
thing,
that?
it's really for you guys to decide. I don't see, there's no like glaring red flag, right? You got to get out of this area. You can't possibly sit on this case. I don't see that at all. We thought it was worth discussion among the board. I think that the other thing to look at is the planning board, yes, they voted, but they never voted. I don't think they honed in on this particular matter to a degree where he's, gotten up and sort of said, no way, or absolutely on this particular nuance.
So what's before us today is talking about the size of the home. Has that been something that's come up in the planning board that you've been involved in?
I think.
Yeah, but not sort of as a,
I think it's referred back to
something that,
I mean, it did for us last year as well, so we've all had that.
I don't think that's the standard. I may just interject a couple of thoughts. There's a case, Winslow versus Holdings, which is the central case in that area. And that was a case where there was very, very deep feelings about variance given, and it was a very bad case, but bad facts make good law. And frankly, it's very common in my world, out of a small town too, to have cases bounce back and forth between boards. This just happens all the time. And if you recuse the board, because I heard it before, there'll be 5 empty seats there. It just doesn't work out. I think the proper way to do this is what he did. So raise the issue and talk about it. And frankly, the question really is, what is the issue tonight? It's not the whole variance. It's a very fine issue. We're seeking to amend one condition to meet market needs. It's not the whole thing again. And this dialogue to occur, I think the proper protocol is that, is it Eric?
Yep.
Eric disclose it. We talk about that. The question is, can he keep an open mind on this single issue? That's all. And if he can't do it, I respect the fact he brought it up. And if you can do it on that single issue, I'd like to have your attendance.
So what do you think?
No pressure.
Well, another option is to have the board give a vote, and that could help inform Eric's decision. Is Eric's decision on his own?
Right. I guess also one criteria might be the appearance of being private. Sometimes when boards act, it appears to be correct. Again, it's been disclosed to us. We have no problem with that. So for the record, we waive the honor.
I mean, I don't.
So, they have no problem with
Well, it's
it.
duly noted in the record. That they have no objection.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
And I think your position is similar to ours, at least the 2 of us, that we've heard this before. So if you, in different contexts,
But I know more of the why.
you do more of it than we do. But I don't have a problem.
Maybe you help me.
Yeah, I'm no problem.
May not be.
No.
You can't know too much sometimes.
Yes,
I'd like to introduce our team for the record. Again, Jack McCormick, Kevin McCass, who's here for the applicant.
Thanks for hearing us tonight.
Ken Brown is our engineer, surveyor, Kent Derry's right here, behind my back of the room. And Joe McDonald, Mr. Roach Realty, he's a realtor to talk about some of the reasons why we're doing it. And the background, I'll be very quick on. About a year ago, July 18th, 17, a variance was granted to allow 24 cluster lots. And there was a proviso that the footprint of the structure to go on those lots, on each lot, shall not exceed 1,500 square feet. And that was not derived from an ordinance saying that, but rather conversation, reasonable people discussing it, and that seemed to be the appropriate way to go. Well, at that time, of course, the 5 criteria had to be met. They were met then, discussed, I'm sure I wasn't here, but they were met, and frankly, the question is anything we're doing tonight going to undo that? You know, what we're proposing, is that still reasonable within the confines of what we have in common? And our application tonight to amend that one provision speaks of the 1,500 square foot footprint being amended up to 2,500. Well, good news in a way. We don't want 2,500 now. It seems that Kent's drainage calculations don't support that with the current engineering, current approach. Consequently, under the current drainage calculations, we're looking for 1,880, 1,080. And the reason is, the clear reason is identified. So on the physical side, the drainage wouldn't support a larger structure on those lots. But the structure we're proposing will still fit on each and every lot. The structure of that size will comply with setbacks and all requirements of your ordinance. Now, since the time of coming here last year, Kevin has done a good job of working hard to start the marketing process and talking about what we're doing here, what designs will work. And we get feedback from Joe McDonald and Roach Realty, interesting feedback, that it looks like our market really is not young marrieds, but rather pre-retirees, aging baby boomers like me, and people who like to live on one floor, because at some point, second floor living is kind of tough. And they want basically more downstairs than upstairs. They want to have wider doorways. They want to have a 2-car garage, a master suite on the main floor to avoid walkers, that type of thing going upstairs. And that same scenario, that same overall approach, fits for people who are disabled. My sister's disabled with a wheelchair. I know her problems getting around doorways. I understand that. So it's something that we don't want to discriminate against people who are old or disabled. I'm sure you don't either. And we're trying to offer something that will allow those people a place to live with dignity. And frankly, we have some nice designs that will help them do that. Now, I'd like to, at this point, just pass out a simple page-and-a-half letter that Joe was kind enough to prepare. Thank you, Joe. And I'll give you a second to look it over. That kind of underscores our thinking as to what the reasons are for considering an increase in the size of the footprint.
No, this is different. Oh, no.
Just a little longer.
So, Joe, tell us what we do. Ask me over that letter, please. For sure, yeah, for sure.
All right, was there a difference between the 2 videos that were attached?
I don't know.
I think it was just the size of the file, right?
No, it was probably just a different file. They were the exact same one. They were just little head drawn shots.
One said medium and one
Yeah.
said small or something
Yeah,
like that.
one was so you could use it for your email. The other one was actually put on.
So I watched it.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes or something.
That was it.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah.
I watched it. I don't want to make sure. I only watched one.
And we have the technology here necessary to show that video if that
Pretty impressive.
is so desired.
Does anybody here need to see it?
I have not seen it yet.
So if it is.
I'll start.
We'll take you up on that offer.
It shouldn't take
Yeah.
long, but you guys feel free to keep deliberating along.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it here? All right. What's the popcorn?
There we go.
That's 25 seconds. All right.
Okay, see it.
Wait, there's no restrictions to the down.
Don't fish. Just don't fish, don't swim.
Better go home.
This is just an overview of Nature's View itself, which is a 51 lot subdivision in Macomia. Basically what it's set up is ranches and capes. The capes themselves are basically first floor masters, wide hallways, high ceilings, and you have the 2 bedrooms and the bath upstairs. Okay? What we found is a demographic of people that were downsizing, were looking either for a ranch or like a Cape One, where a Cape One you have the additional bedroom for a family and friends and neighbors. But the demographic, if you read it, it's basically 78% of houses are 1,800 square feet. 91% have garages. You can't build a house with an garage. I mean, new construction just doesn't make any sense. Selling Nature's View, Willow Pond, these are 2 subdivisions. Subdivisions that they're like Crestwood, that have had the Garrisons, they've stalled and they just haven't sold. Because that's not the demographic that's going to people that want to buy these houses. So it's pretty simple. It's a 1,500 square foot house without garages and has 2 bedrooms upstairs. It's not the market. It's very, very simple.
Thanks. I put out a couple of things that Joe had written in the letter. The Nature's View, which you saw, was a nice land use, and those lots were 7,000 square feet. Ours are 10,000, just so you know. And Nature's View had 31.7 acres with 51 houses. We have 32 acres more or less with 24 lots. So it's a whole less density situation here than what we saw there, and that was nice actually. So the idea here is to obtain permission from the board to amend that condition of 1,500 square feet. And we think that its sense is that there's no congestion in terms of the land plan, the same 24 lots. The setback requirements in your ordinance are all being met. There's no change, no violation, nothing. We're not asking you to bend anything. These fit. The drainage issues, as Kent would say, Kent, by the way, is able to address any questions you have on the technical side. That's not my bailiwick. But there's no drainage issues created by this. It's all the same drainage plan we have already. We're looking at basically 19 feet by 19 feet addition, because if you go from 1,500 to 1,880, it's about 19. The screen, I'm not sure how big that is, it's not a whole lot different than the screen. I think the question is anything we're proposing, is it going to affect negatively the variance conditions? And I jotted some thoughts down to talk about the dreaded 5 criteria that people agonize about. The granting of the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Well, we think basically the amendment complies with law, it's rational, it's reasonable, allows a very reasonable use, allows the elderly and disabled access to nice housing, and we think it's perfectly appropriate. And the reason we have an ordinance is to promote the land planning, safety, and common sense. We think that complies. The spirit of the ordinance is being observed. Again, density won't change. All setbacks are being met. Drainage is not affected. It's win-win. We think it's a reasonable, lawful use. There's no cost to society in doing this. We think it's a benefit. Substantial justice is being done. We think it's just to allow people a reasonable use of their property. Zoning is not meant to take rights away, but to allow a reasonable use of property. When you buy property, there's a bundle of rights you have, unless you can't do it under law. We think it's perfectly reasonable and just to allow this use to occur. The addition in size is all we're looking for, not changing underlying variance. And there's no relationship between the public purpose of the ordinance and the application to this parcel. Again, the zoning ordinance is intended to allow rational planning, density, all those things. And here, to deny that, there's no gain to society in doing that. We think basically permitting the it's less impact on the land than a cluster subdivision. We know that. We decided that last year. 1880 is a marginal increase over the size of the existing footprint. And we think it allows the elderly and disabled to live in a way which creates dignity. There's no legitimate purpose served by limiting the size to 1,500 square feet. It's a reasonable use for all the reasons I've just articulated, and there's no loss of value. We're surrounded by, I think, a mobile home park, and how can nicer, better, bigger homes affect the value negatively? It just doesn't make sense. We think, frankly, it's a proper use of land, and we're coming back to ask for your assistance. Now, Kent is here, as I mentioned, to answer any technical questions on drainage or anything else. Yes, actually, we've got a plan I will show you. Sure. He's got a proposal of what a house would look like in that size range. There's a huge difference between 1,500 and 1,750 or 1,850.
Oh, I think it's in, might be in
I
this
think we have,
package,
is it these guys? Yeah.
Yeah, it might be in
That's
this package.
So again, that's my part of the spiel, but I'd like to have you feel free to ask questions to any one of us, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, if I could too, you know, when the variance was granted originally, I didn't expect to have to come back and ask to amend it. But it was kind of brought up during the deliberation session of that meeting, and at the time it was talked about, you know, could we live with 1,500 square feet? Well, we were very early on in the planning process at the time, so I didn't even really know what I was going to be building for a product. So when I heard 1,500 square feet, I said, okay, yeah, that seems reasonable to me, and I just hadn't given it a lot of, you know, kind of forethought. But then once, you know, we got further into it and I started talking with Joe, you know, who would be doing the sales of it, he said, well, geez, in that footprint, you really can't meet the market demands because, you know, as the population in New Hampshire ages and, you know, the demographics change, even families prefer to have, you know, first floor master bedroom with some bedrooms upstairs. And to do that in that 1,500 square foot footprint, it really, you know, it just didn't work. So that's kind of why we kind of got brought back to the table here. So, you know, it wasn't that we were trying to pull anything, you know, funny up front and try to switch it at the end. It's just really because, you know, I didn't know what we were going to be building for product at the time.
So last year, you asked for the variance to go from 11 units to the 24. That was the original variance, correct? Because the cluster development was limited to 11 units.
Right. Well, unless we did manufactured homes.
Right, and you made
Yep.
the case that you could just put a mobile home park in there.
Right.
And it would, and you wouldn't need to even come to the board. And that was the reason why the limitation on the size of the home, because you said, you know, you're looking for a small starter home.
Yep.
And that's how we started it. So in my world, that's called feature creep, because it keeps, like, so you go from 11 homes to the 24, and then the 24 at a certain size to the bigger size. And so I'm just seeing feature creep. So,
Well, if I could comment on that, though, the mobile homes that are in the mobile home park are larger than 2,000 square feet. Because, well, let me just do the math real quick. So the homes that are in there are 28 by 56, which is 1568, plus a 24 by 24. So it's 28 times 56 plus 24 times 24. So the ones that are in the mobile home park now, the mobile homes are 2,144 square feet. We're only asking for 1,880. So they're smaller still than what is in the mobile home park.
and the other issue was the density requirement, because that's rural agricultural versus residential. So your coverage with roads and housing and all that had to be limited to 40% of the overall property.
Right. And at the time when we were coming for the variance, it was before all the engineering was completed.
Yeah.
And now that all the engineering is completed, it shows that the property supports, you know, with AOT and all the state, you know, conservation stuff, that it still meets all the drainage and we're not, you know, negatively affecting the site from an environmental standpoint.
Does it meet the zoning requirement for,
Setbacks and everything?
no, the coverage? The zoning required for coverage.
Oh,
Yes.
like 40%.
Is it less than 40%?
Well, they'll have to.
Right. Well, can Eric talk?
What?
Can Eric talk? No, I mean, as a planning board, can you just listen?
No, he can talk.
So has the planning board dealt with all that
Oh.
already?
Maybe not want to ask him questions.
Oh, no, I can't.
I mean, I'm not, it's fine, but, I mean, what, the planning board will look at the lot coverage.
Okay,
And I don't mean to interrupt Eric, but I also don't want to put him on the spot of having to sort of, explain what the planning board does at this point. The planning board will look at lot coverage.
Okay.
It's a 40% lot coverage requirement. So if you go lot by lot, and they have, let's say, 10,000 square foot lots, there would be, what, 4,000 square feet. So basically, they're looking for 1880.
Calculated was the lots, road versus the entire parcel.
Right.
So what happens on the lot isn't really a factor.
But even
So
if
the
you,
entire 10,000 square foot lot.
right, I mean, it was like the road and all that additional stuff.
oh, they're easily under 40%. I mean, they're like not even what? Are you even at 10%?
I think it's like 22 or something.
Oh, is it 22?
Yes.
Okay.
But nothing's changed on that. The density requirement for the open space still remains the same.
Okay,
And the planning board did conditionally approve it, so we've still got a couple conditions to meet. We're still working with the planning board on that, but the approval from the planning board has been granted.
at the
Condition.
larger footprint?
No.
Well, they have nothing, no say in that.
Oh.
That's not part of the
That's,
planning
I
board.
don't know that to be true. They might want to look at it again.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you approve it tonight, they may
Then
want
they
to look at it.
want to look at it again. Okay,
There's a conversation where you have it, I think once we approve here, we'll be back to the board and talk about how that fits in the overall plan.
Yeah. Because I mean, if it was denied, I mean, there would still be 24 lots that'll be constructed, still 24 homes. It's just that the homes won't be as marketable to the people that are going to be living. I'm not looking at it for my own selfish purposes. It's more for the residents that are going to be living there and for the overall value of the homes that we'll be selling in the city, in the town of Tilton.
What made this come to this board in the first place with the 1,500 square feet?
so no, they wanted to increase the number of homes from 11 for a cluster development.
Okay.
From 11 to 24.
Okay.
And it was.
And one of the parameters was 1,500 square feet.
And one of the,
Originally,
yeah.
as she mentioned, with his land, he could have built a trailer park.
Right.
And put many more homes.
But he's doing something a little bit higher up on
Something a
the.
little different, which is why he had to come in front of us, the zoning board, and that's how it got here.
Right.
It's
So-
more creative, the creativity brings us before you guys, I guess.
So the zoning in rural agricultural lets you put a trailer, mobile home park in, but it doesn't let you build cluster development. I'm just
No,
making sure I understand that
No,
correctly.
so you can build either one, but there's a limitation
On
on
the
number
number of units, okay.
in each unit, in each subdivision
Okay.
that you can put in.
Did I
So
hear
he
you?
could have put in 30 mobile homes,
Right.
Or 11 full-size?
or
regular
11
homes.
a cluster of 11.
Okay.
And he requested to increase the cluster to 24.
And there would have been no size restrictions on the mobile homes. So the ones that I mentioned that were, 21, 44 square feet are what we have in there. But there's nothing that said I couldn't have put 30 homes in there that were all 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet. There would have been no restriction on that. So that was something that came about during the deliberation at that last zoning meeting. But like I said, at the time, if I knew what product, sells and what we were going to be building, at that time, I would have said, well, I can't really live with 1,500, but could we do 1,880 because that meets what the market demands. Still a significant size less than a mobile home and a significant amount of lots less than a mobile home.
So are there any abutters in the,
The thing I'd like to say is, agricultural zone requires some, minimum lot size is ridiculous,
3 acres for a mobile home park?
but, a home.
It's a question.
But the
Cluster.
The lot size,
So, for a single-family home,
right.
but there is also a zoning
They're
thing?
working on the, so that makes it good, I guess.
Cluster takes
Because
over.
it's a cluster development, it does change it over.
You guys are asking not for 2,500, did I hear that correctly? You're actually asking for
Correct, just
1,880?
1880, yes. Yeah, it's an increase of 380 square feet from what the variance already allows. And again, that's basically the size difference to allow a first floor master bedroom and bath, again, to accommodate elderly people, handicapped people, and just more with market neighborhoods.
So,
24 lots, cluster was approved last year. That was a function of proper density, proper regulation.
density was not brought up. Density was brought up, but it wasn't a confirmed.
I mean, density, 24 lots. I mean, 24 cluster lots were allowed last year.
Approved at 1,500 square feet.
Right, with the
Yeah.
density, in terms of the number of lots, not density, the lots aren't changing shape at all. The lots are still the same. The number of lots isn't changing either.
Right. But it did go out, so you're in a butter, so you knew about it, right? Because there, at the last meeting, I recall there being quite a bit of discussion from the abutters.
Oh, there was a buyer
Yeah,
notice.
all right,
Yeah.
so you were the only one, so do we have any other comments from the audience? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, because the difference in the size of the home is gonna change the impermeable surface, so probably gonna increase runoff.
So, can you address that?
Right, so when Kevin and Jack had originally put this request in for tonight, I think
Can you hear?
the notice was 2,500 square
Yeah.
feet. And so they asked me last week to verify that the site could accommodate that without changing all of the drainage we've already designed and all of that. And so I ran the numbers and no, in fact, it didn't support that. So we would have had to redesign the drainage to make improvements, so as Mr. Wadley said, there wouldn't be an increase in the runoff. But when we'd originally designed it, we had a little bit of extra in there. And so when we looked at the numbers down to 1880 was the number where we came out that the current design we have doesn't need to be altered, that it can't support that. If it couldn't, if they had stuck with the 2,500, we could have made the changes potentially to affect it, but it would have been starting over with the design. So we sat down and talked about, well, the difference between what they wanted and what they really needed. And they agreed that the need, the maximum size that they needed to have was 1880 in order to have that ability to provide the house with the first floor master and the two-car garage.
It's the least amount of space to do the right thing. It's the smallest size footprint you need to get the job done.
Do you have any other concerns?
So the runoff is my big problem.
And it's still accessed, you'd still access that development through the park?
What?
Or is there another road?
No,
going?
there's another access point off of School Street.
Okay.
So it's completely separated from the manufactured housing community.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Did you feel like the runoff concern was addressed?
Not really, but that's the way it goes.
So is there a specific item, like a problem that you are concerned with, or just runoff in general?
So the runoff in general, I haven't seen enough of their plans to really pick out a point, but it stands to reason that you've got more impermeable surface is going to make a faster runoff.
Right.
Which, you get a faster runoff, you're going to create a runoff problem for everybody. Not just on their lot, everybody around it gets it.
I understand.
And this has been a concern from the very beginning of the project with Mr. Wadley and the Conservation Commission. We met with them, we've done the drainage counts, we've submitted it to the Alteration and Terrain Bureau, DES, a great deal of work's gone into the drainage just to eliminate the concerns that Mr. Wadley has, and I feel very confident. So his AOT, and we got the recommendation from the Conservation Commission, and the planning board has approved the plans. The town review engineer has reviewed the drainage, so I feel very confident that limiting it to 1880 will allow us to keep the same drainage design that we have and have it still function properly. And like I said, it wasn't that we're saying this easily. We spent a couple of days last week rerunning all the numbers and realizing that the 2,500 was just too much to ask.
In the sewer, if you were gonna hook up to sewer or try and hook up to sewer?
Yeah, we looked at that as an option, and unfortunately, it wasn't. We weren't able to do it.
Okay.
We would have had to cross some abutter property, and we just weren't able to do it. So we were able to manage that through community leach fields, which again was also approved through DES.
Yeah, okay.
In good shape.
You're in good shape?
I've got my question answered.
How about you, Eric?
I have questions.
All right.
Are we discussing criteria?
So do you have any other questions for them before we discuss criteria?
Well, you say that everything's been approved through the state conservation, but that was based on the original plan, correct?
The 1,500.
Based on 1,500. So, by granting a variance, there's no guarantee that they would continue to approve that.
So from here, we go back to,
Well, I don't know if they would have, I don't know.
it's a process.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to.
There's a process that they're gonna have to continue, if not,
I mean, I don't know that there's a lot, and I could be wrong, but I don't know that there's a lot of value in assessing what the next steps
Well, I'm
are.
not,
I mean, you have a decision before you, and it's not.
but I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around they came before this board last
That's July.
July, for 1,500 square feet. And after much discussion. it
Well, I
was-
should say, they didn't come asking.
No, I'm sorry, they
Okay,
came to
yeah,
this board, looking for a variance for
Yeah,
24,
right.
and they were amenable to 1,500 square feet. And this is where I get in my head, hindsight's 20/20, I guess. And at that point, maybe they should have said, well, geez, we got to think about that, because what are we really building? You know, they didn't know at the time what they were building. This was going to put 24 houses on 30 acres of land. 30 acres of land. Yeah, 24 houses on approximately 10,000 square foot lots. Now, a year later, they're back before this board. Saying, well, we want to break the deal that we made with you last year and change it. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that, because there's been a whole series of steps taken based on that current information.
Right.
So,
We haven't closed it yet.
The objective of planning is to plan. I've done development work for 40 years. I wish we all had the hindsight or the foresight to know what's going to happen. We don't. I had one project that came back 4 or 5 times in action. The market changed, people's taste changed. Planning is supposed to be flexible. There's no deal made. We came in before you, you laid our cards down, you gave us a variance. That was wonderful. We're simply saying now things have changed. Nothing is affecting anything adversely. It's all, in our opinion, it's all the proper way planning should be. It's supposed to be an ongoing, malleable function. You come back before the board, you don't do it yourself willy-nilly, you come back and do this. It's not a matter of losing faith, it's not a matter of sliding hand, it's not any bait and switch. Things change, that's why we're here. He has faith in his calculations. Is there any reason you think there's a problem with his calculations? What's the ongoing process? Eric asked a question.
For the AOT permit, we would send an amendment request or just a notice that we had a change in calculations and we would amend the permit based on that. That would probably be the extent of what we would
If they don't, we can't do it, right?
do. Right.
Yes.
So they're gonna re-review it,
Yeah.
say, take a look
Right.
at the conditions, say this
Right.
works or
If
doesn't.
they don't, we can't do it. It's as simple as that. Your part of the game is not to decide that necessarily, though I understand you an issue with drainage, we should. But the first step is get the variance. The next step is give it to the planning board. I think there's a conversation there, and give it to the state. And that's the process we have. It's a good process.
And as far as when I came in for the original variance, I wasn't even at that point thinking, I had this raw piece of land of 31 acres and said, okay, well, I want to be able to develop it into something. I know I can do it as manufactured housing, and that's what I'll do if this variance isn't granted. However, if it's granted, I want to build 24 cluster houses. That's what I came in with. But sitting in a meeting like this, kind of, under the pressure or whatever, it came up, okay, well, can you live with a 1,500 square foot footprint? Well, at that point, I wasn't even that far into the planning down the road as far as what I was even going to build. I didn't even know if I was still building manufactured housing or houses when I walked into the board the first time. So I really hadn't given any forethought as to what I was going to build. In hindsight, I would have had all this information and spoken with Joe before, but I didn't even know if I could build 24 lots, let alone what I was going to build on those lots. So that's kind of, again, I apologize for that part of it, but it's just, like John said, it's kind of had been fluid until we really know.
Were you on the board that last year? You were an alternate, so, go ahead.
Question or comment?
To answer this question, there is a drainage problem in the area now, so any extra is going to make it worse.
It's undeveloped land, right?
So there's a mobile home park,
This is Country Meadows off School Street. And it's
yes.
behind that, down in that valley there, is that what it's
Yes, so
talking
when we went to do a site view of it,
I don't think
you
that's-
had to go through the mobile home park
I
to
don't think that's
view
the
the land.
purview.
Right,
It's more of, again, going through the 5 criteria.
Yeah.
At some
right.
point, I'm
So
not
last
saying-
year, so, I guess my comment was, last year, he just got his variance. The board was 3-2 for it. So, there was some concerns about it last year. if you
Because
remember.
in drainage at that time, we hadn't done drainage calculations, so we didn't know. But the way that drainage works, the same amount of rain is going to fall out of the sky, regardless if it's all pavement or all wooded lot, it's the same amount. So the drainage is really what you do to be able to capture that water, either infiltrate it back into the ground or direct it to a stream so it goes to the right places. And that's what Kent is talking about as far as how that water that falls from the sky is actually treated when it runs off of the site that it's currently falling on. And that's where he's saying that.
Sometimes development solves problems. In the raw land, it doesn't. So sometimes what you can do with people like that are move the water to the right place. So it's a better situation than you had before.
I think, and I think your concern is just that where you are as an abutter, you're already having drainage problems. And you want to make sure that they don't get worse with this.
Trying to make it get worse, yes.
Okay.
In your calculations, in your process in this project, was that brought up? Okay.
Yeah, this has been a discussion from the very beginning when we first came in for preliminary discussions.
The existing.
We actually spoke to Mr. Wadley before we started the planning and looked at the area that he's talking about. So
You're only taking into account what's going on now and what will be future.
Right.
And how to best address that. So going back to the development improved conditions. So your plan is to handle what will be coming and handle what is now better.
So the alteration terrain permit with DES now looks at 3 criteria, not only stormwater retention, so that you don't have additional water going on this one, It also looks at stormwater treatment, and it looks at stormwater infiltration. So they have criteria for all three of those now, which is new from their 2010 rule changes. And at this point, they're enforcing it quite strictly. So this was quite an ordeal to get this project design through. So we put in a lot of time.
Okay. Question?
If this board approves, I got to think on this. If this board approves this variance, is this a way to circumvent cleaner? I'm asking this to Dory.
Is there a way to circumvent?
No, is by granting a variance, is that circumventing the planning site review process?
To make sure that it doesn't,
Can you put a criteria, can you put a condition that they have to go back before the planning board?
you certainly could, but that's been my intention anyway. What I've communicated is that we should follow the change of use review process, and they come before the planning board, and the planning board would make a determination whether it needs additional review past that.
Do you have any more questions?
But I think they have responses.
Oh,
I just wanted to respond to Eric. One of the things about the meeting tonight was that it precedes our meeting next Tuesday night with the planning board. So we had the option of waiting until we had all of the conditions rather than, like Eric said, come in and get the zoning change. And would that be a end around having the planning board address it? In fact, we have a planning board meeting coming up. So whatever decision the board takes tonight is part of our next meeting. So we wanted to do this now before we had the conditional approval signed off, so that it was part of the planning process.
We're expecting a dialogue before the planning board. These boards don't act independently, they act together. Secondly, we're not seeking a variance, we're seeking to amend an existing variance. We're not asking for a variance.
so we still have to go through all the criteria.
To see if what we're seeking somehow undoes the criteria found last year. I see if that's rational.
So, you're asking for a variance. We need to go, yes, you're asking for a variance that changes, no, you're asking for a variance. A variance, you're here in front of the zoning board, asking for a variance. We go through this, the same criteria as we did in the first one.
Madam Message, for the record, I just want to make one point very clear. We have a variance now. We're not seeking to get a new variance. We're seeking to amend the restriction imposed on the first variance. I agree that the criteria have value and relevance insofar as our request negatively affects the criteria found to exist previously. That's absolutely reasonable.
So what I'm saying is if someone on the board voted against, did not believe that your client met all the 5 criteria previously, they would likely not also believe that they made it this time. So
this is the rehash of the last variance. This is simply, that variance was granted whether we like it or not, or whether we like it or not. The point is, we're seeking to amend the existing variance.
So I'm asking for clarity.
I don't see any discrepancy between
I'm going
what
to go
the
through
two
the
were
5
saying.
criteria.
What's that?
I'm going through the 5 criteria for the
Yeah.
variance, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
But just for the amendment of the variance, I think.
But there's no harm,
Not
I
the
mean,
whole variance.
there's no harm in going through the 5 criteria. I mean, looking at it as 1,880 square foot.
You should.
I think
$24.
what you're trying to make clear is that if we vote no tonight, it doesn't eliminate the existing variance, the one that still exists for 1,500 square feet. Is that my understanding
We're
of it?
simply saying we have a variance now, we want to tweak it, and that's all there is to it. And if you think that our tweak somehow undoes those criteria, you should vote it down.
So
I think he's just trying to make it clear that the old one doesn't go away.
Yeah, but it's not like you're, sure, that's fine. And if that's what he's trying to say, that's fine that he's trying to say that. I think that what wouldn't be the case is that you're only evaluating the impact of, 380 square feet. You still have to look at these 1,880 square foot buildings and whether they meet the 5 variance criteria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. That was
Welcome to the team.
Fun, huh?
Welcome to the team. You got a tough one the first day. All right. Is there any other questions from the board to the audience? Any other comments that the audience would like to make to the board? Okay. So let's close it and discuss the criteria. We're just going to go through them. So, is the variance contrary to the public interest?
I don't believe so. I
Is it?
think, and I think the water concerns, the runoff concerns are important. Because I wouldn't want to live in a place that was developed and then started flooding. And it sounds like they are addressing that. And it also sounds like the state is forcing them to address that, which all is positive. It's all good. So I don't see that the water issue is contrary to public interest. They're handling that. And the actual size of the home and how the plan is laid out, I don't see it to be contrary to public interest.
I would agree. This isn't a significantly larger building than what would be allowed in there anyways.
It's just, yeah. So I don't think it. I mean, even though it is rural agricultural cluster and mobile home development is allowed, so I don't think it alters the essential character of the area. What do you think, Eric? We're gonna have everyone talk about them. So.
I guess it's an unknown if adding 380 square feet is going to have an impact on the public, the voters with flood.
Right. But I wouldn't say, I guess, given their comments about what they're doing as far as drainage and stuff, they're trying to, in the fact that they have a different access point, may be addressing
Well,
some
they
of
have,
the public.
they've had a different access point all along,
Oh, I guess I didn't see that.
so it's,
Yeah, that hasn't changed, so that's still the same.
I mean, all we're doing is, they have an approval
Right,
based on 1,500 square feet.
The
right.
approval has to get reapproved after a
Well,
change.
I don't know what that process is, but we know certain things were addressed for 1,500 square feet in 1880. I'm not,
Okay. So,
Will 18 break the bank or 15 would break the bank?
I don't know. I don't know, is 1,500 too much?
so if,
The engineers, I don't think
does
it's
the
it.
change of use review process address that?
I guess I don't know. It's no guarantee that it's going back to the planning board.
Didn't you guys just said next week you're bringing this back to the planning board?
We're in compliance mode, we're showing compliance with restrictions and requirements, and I'm expecting to be part of the conversation. Unfortunately, I won't be there.
So,
I'll speak for you.
so there's nothing to say that we can't put it in a
No, I'm just,
condition, right? We can put it in as a condition even if it's not required. We can
well,
actually
I'm just
specify it.
I'm just going through the criteria.
That's right. Okay.
Public safety or health, welfare, whatever you want to call it, is because you're adding the square footage, so that square footage from roof, whatever, It's gonna go into the drainage system, which, you know, is gonna go burn. Before, it was just going into the ground, it wasn't as much of an issue with drainage, it was gonna go wherever it goes, but now it's going into a controlled area. Or getting multiple voices in my head telling me to say one thing.
It sounds to me like
Trying to keep it
they have to get that.
focused on zoning.
Right, so it sounds like they have to do that anyway, correct? You have to go, you have to address that anyway. The drainage plans and all that have to be reassessed after re-reviewed.
Good. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it focused on
Okay. Okay, the spirit of the, so do you have anything else on the public? All right, spirit of the ordinance is observed. So criteria 1 above. So is the spirit of the ordinance observed? So the ordinance for rural agricultural development, cluster development.
We're not changing the amount of homes. We're not, again, not changing anything other than size.
Right.
And I think it's, one thing that I keep getting tripped up on is with the 2,500 square foot thought, it was never, my understanding was is they were never intending to build 2,500 square foot homes to the T, all of them. It was others.
Were until about 20 minutes ago.
Well, the
Up to.
bill was up to, so there would be some less than.
Yeah, I mean, they call for 1760, 1872. There was a third one that they must have taken out now.
That's just a statement.
This is what you guys plan on building, right? Yeah.
But and granted, now it's down to 18.
Well, this was 2024, so.
I think they've pulled that. They don't. My correct understanding is correct. You don't want any more than 1880.
At first, when we set up to 2,500 square feet, we were just kind of just making a blanket, well, this will cover us. But then we said, okay, well, if we're going to ask for that, we know that drainage has been a topic of conversation on this. So we said, well, before we ask for that, let's take a look and see if we would be able to do that without having to redesign everything. And that's when Kent pulled it out and said, well, you know, 2,500 will cause a problem. 1880 won't. That fits right into the drainage that we've already currently done. So we said, let's just do that. And the other Cape, actually, we were, you know, that one was on the fence of getting pulled out anyway. So we said, okay, well, we'll just stick with these 2 floor plans then. It fits in the drainage calculation. It's asking for less than the 2,500, and it really just kind of narrows the scope down to really what we want.
Question for Mr. Brown. When you submitted the plans, I know there's always a degree of, it's like a poll, you know, plus or minus 5%, whatever. So when you submitted these plans, just for my ease of mind, when you submitted these plans to the state, is there a degree of variance allowed? Or does it have to be based on 1,500 square feet, it's black or white, at 1,500 square feet? If you went to 1,501 square feet,
What's your safety factor?
yes.
So there was some safety factor in it. I think that's what you're looking at.
Well,
So what we look at is all the impervious areas. So not only the rooftops, but the driveways, the roadway, the sidewalk, all of that has to get factored in. So there's a lot of impervious area, not just these roofs. So the roofs this 380 square feet is a small percentage of the total amount of impervious area in the development.
Do you have a number of percentage of increase we're talking about? Like,
Of impervious area?
yeah, we, at 1,500, we had X amount percent.
I don't have that
Now we're
number.
going to 18.
But if you could imagine,
I know,
all
that's
of the,
good.
no, but if you could imagine all of the sidewalks, the driveways, and the roadway, all are in that same category.
Right.
That the addition of the roof would be a small percentage of that. So that falls into what I think Eric's question was, does that fall into the safety factor? In fact, it did. We shortened some of the driveways up a little bit, did a couple of things to do that, and we were able to make those numbers work. Now, I'm not saying that
even if the number, if we went to 2,500, ultimately, we could probably make that work by redesigning it. But the question was, what do you really need? And these lots are relatively small. You know, some of them are just over 10,000 square feet with 20-foot setbacks. So you can't put a very big house on any of these, anyway. So there's no McMansions that could go on.
Can we limit this in our approval of it to 1880? I know they submitted for 2,500. Can we dial it back?
Yeah, so now they're asking, so whatever we do, we would limit it to that.
Okay.
And whatever other conditions that we feel are necessary to feel good that what's going to happen and what needs to happen, what Eric is sitting there, having his voices in his head talking. Got a lot of them. So, all right, so, spirit of the ordinance, is it observed?
I believe so.
You have any concerns about the spirit of the ordinance? Eric? You're good. Okay, substantial justice is done. The loss to the individual is not outweighed by the gain to the general public.
To me, it kind of sounds like the sale of the houses. You know, building houses that are able to be sold in the market is the thing that's on the hinging here.
Yeah.
I don't think that 380 square foot per house more seems like it's going to cause a substantial impact to the justice of the community.
Right.
If anything, it seems to me like it would benefit it.
Yeah, I guess I would. The only other thing right there is the mobile home park, right?
Right.
So
There's
I'm
a
not-
field, a couple farms.
Right. So. What about you? Substantial justice? Needs it? Eric?
Yep.
Okay, values of the surrounding properties are not diminished. I would say they are not diminished. Eric? Okay, hardship. Does it meet the hardship criteria? General public purposes of the ordinance in a specific application.
I'm super new. To me,
You're super new, so
This,
we're all super new at one point.
to me, it's a hardship. You have a house, you know, a product you're trying to sell, and it's not meeting what the demand on the market is. This restriction that's currently there, and by granting the variance, we're allowing for buildings that meet the demand of the area.
Right.
I mean,
But we don't really have a, can you sell
Could I-
1,500?
okay, I see your point there.
I mean, I'm only playing devil advocate.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The hardship one is the hardest one for me.
Just to sell.
Because it's like, it really is about the property. Does the property present itself in?
I'll tell you, 1,500 square feet, if they can't put garages in the first floor, they'll take it forever to sell. So that would be what I would direct hardship on that. You have a certain market demographic that sells up here, and I've seen subdivisions that are going on 7 and 8 years that are half sold simply because they had a bad product. So if that's a hardship, I think it's really a hardship.
So you're saying a 1,500 square foot footprint without a garage would be more difficult to sell than an 1,800 square foot or a home, first floor master with a garage would be easier to sell.
Yes, absolutely.
And this 1,800 square feet is including the garage.
Correct. It's just that you're in New Hampshire, you have to build a new product with a garage. It just makes sense. First floor master, look at the age of that, you have to sell to what people buy. If you build something that nobody wants to buy, when I build it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And with the financing involved and the carry costs and everything else, if it takes an extra 10 years to sell a product, that's a direct hardship, like, to me.
Yeah, I think the question is, does a liberal enforcement of the ordinance create a hardship for the applicant to no value to the public? In other words, is the hardship created upon the applicant outweighed by the benefit to the public? That's the question.
No, that's not the,
Well,
Yeah.
it is in a way a consideration, and I think that was a lot of your consideration last time. And it probably is wise for you guys to identify a hardship that's not directly linked to the applicant's economic situation. Sorry if I interrupted you,
No.
Mr. McCormick, but,
No, it's fine.
yeah, I think he's actually correct. I mean, obviously, he's a lawyer, but,
Many days
but there,
That's my way.
that,
And I mean, I
But
guess
go ahead.
another point too is the people that are gonna be buying it, it's a hardship to them. So if there's somebody that's aging and they can't do stairs very well, but the only product, and they wanna stay in Tilton because many people are selling the big colonials or whatever. When they had families, they worked great, now they're kind of downsizing, so it's a hardship to someone that wants to stay in the community, buy a new single-family home,
so
and have that first.
So I don't think that relates to this, though. The proposed use is a reasonable one. No fair and substantial relationship between the general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application.
If we did not grant this,
Yeah.
they had to build only 1,500,
Mhm.
and they had difficult time selling them.
Yeah.
And it prolonged the sale process. Does our restricting to 1,500 provide more benefit to the community than the hardship he's going to incur, or they're going to incur? Meaning, is the community better served by keeping it at 1,500? Is the community going to gain $1,000? Just again,
Right,
round
no,
numbers,
it's fine.
simple numbers, and he's going to lose 500. Therefore, the community is going to be benefited by staying at 1,500. Where is the community going to be not lose anything, and he's going to lose 1,000 by keeping it at 1,500? So then he would be harmed more than the community would be benefited. I think that's the question here.
Right.
Who's going to be harmed more than the other party is benefited?
To me, it seems.
Can I
Yeah.
offer a counter argument to that?
Go ahead.
So, if the bigger house allows more burden on the town services,
Yeah.
school system,
Actually, just the opposite.
would that put more burden on me to pay more for my taxes because the town has to pay more?
Well, it's not.
Right, so as your house gets bigger, you're,
You have more population, that sort of thing.
right.
But I don't know that this particular context is asking for a building that would affect that. Would not be my view of it. Like, this is not like we're changing these from single-family homes to duplexes, and now it's from 4 or 5 people living in it, it's 8 or 10 people living in it.
We're changing the market. They're asking for a change in marketability.
But
The
they,
ability to sell them.
but I think Eric is saying that they're looking to sell them to, they put it in here.
The baby boomer generation.
Well, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not
Young
an age restricted
families.
housing, so
Yeah, so
whoever
anybody
can
has
buy it.
checked it clears, it's who's gonna buy the house.
Yeah.
Right.
And if the Gilman clan comes out of South Carolina, and moves up here and buys all 24 houses, and they have 10 kids per house, then so be it.
Bought and sold.
Bought and sold.
Right.
Nothing against people from South Carolina, but they're really good.
But the type of house, if you were 1,500 square foot, would probably be Garrison, correct? That's what
Garrison
it
or
is.
a Colonial with the bedrooms upstairs.
And you would have 4 bedrooms upstairs. These are geared more for master down, 2 bedrooms up, which I always tell people is a standard case. You have the 2 bedrooms upstairs, and mostly that is its grandkids and their family visiting when people buy these houses. So you would actually have less density of people burdened on the services. When you have a Garrison, that's younger people buying, they have multiple kids, they're gonna put them in school systems, you're gonna have a little bit more burden. When you have something like these K1s, you're gonna have, say, 70 people living in there instead of 120 people. 70 people that are in a certain price point that are gonna come down to the local establishments and start to buy all the services that are local.
That's a good point that I hadn't really thought of. This isn't the square footage of the house. This is just the footprint that it sits on. So, I mean, it could, in theory, be a 3,600 square foot house if it was the same footprint, 2 stories tall.
5 stories.
Exactly. So we're not talking about the.
Granted, that's height restriction.
No.
Yes.
No, it's a 1,800 square foot house.
What they're specifically asking for is the footprint of the home. These homes happen to also be 1,800 square feet. But as far as impact on services and that sort of thing, I mean, it could be a 2-story home. It's not what they're planning on building. So I don't think that that's a
always been
concern.
a discussion, though. It's always been the footprint. It was never the square footage of the
Right, yeah, I guess we keep going back to
Because
square
it's-
footage.
Because it is measured in that.
Because that's what I thought
Yeah,
was
they
agreed
are
to, although I
asking for 1880 footprint.
That was part of the confusion on our part at that last meeting, was in our mind, we were thinking 1,500 square foot footprint. That's up to a 3,000 square foot house if you did a dwelling.
Right.
So that was, when Kevin and I got out of the meeting, on the way home, we started saying, well, what about the garage? What about this? And realizing that, okay, now you've got to somehow tuck the garage into the house and build the bedrooms over it. So that was
As far as the one more point too, to the benefit of the community, so if these houses are more marketable, they're gonna probably sell for a little bit more, which would mean greater tax dollars to.
Okay, so we need to stop
Sorry.
here and focus here.
finished.
Okay, finish. Okay. Okay, so we were on hardship.
I think Matt just brought up a great point.
I voted against it last time.
We're not, you're only increasing the footprint, you're not increasing, so they could still build a 3,000 square foot house based on this.
I think that's what we agreed to.
So, I mean, in theory, I'm
Yeah.
just saying in a perfect world, I mean, it could be a 3,200 square foot house, I don't know. You know, make the top a little wider than the bottom, I don't know how, I don't know, I'm not an
Right.
architect, so I don't know. So really the hardship is, they want the convenience of being able to market the first floor and master bedroom. That's really what it comes down to.
Mhm.
That's really what it comes down to. They want to be able to sell the first floor master bedroom versus a Garrison or whatever, I don't know, in the house. They're looking at.
All bedrooms upstairs.
All bedrooms upstairs.
Moving down, garage down, bedrooms up, or no garage, moving down, bedrooms up.
And it makes the house more marketable.
To a certain
So they,
demographic.
they can have more people, they have a bigger audience versus.
So does that change your discussion on anything else?
No, I just, now I'm having a hard time with hardship.
Although a 3,000 square foot home would definitely change the,
But it's not, we're not limiting the size of the home, we're not limiting the footprint. I think.
I think that by not granting this, we're increasing the likelihood of Garrison 2-story larger homes being built. That would be my takeaway, because if you can't go out, you're going to go
Well,
up.
Yeah.
on the approval from 2017, the building footprint area associated with each unit shall be no greater than 1,500 square feet. That was the
and
restriction.
I don't think, I guess I thought it was 1,500
Conditions.
square feet per house.
So it's always been footprint.
Yeah.
I guess, I think we just fall back to square footage of the home, it's always been footprint.
What's the footprint?
All right. So hardship, any Anything else on hardship? So, we have discussed each and every one of the 5 criteria. Do you agree? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we vote in favor with the contingency that they have their drainage reconsidered. I don't know how to word that correctly.
Okay, so,
Well, I guess
go ahead.
I'll-
What?
I can either wait for a second or why don't I wait for a second until this discussion? And I'll probably recommend an additional condition.
Okay,
Wait, can you repeat the
so, go ahead.
motion?
I don't know that I'm wording it correctly.
Give it a shot.
Make a motion, we vote in favor of the variance with the contingency that they get the drainage re-evaluated at the state level, whatever the appropriate thing is.
You want to change it to square footage?
And also at only 1880 square feet. Is that what you're getting at?
Actually, that's what I was going
Okay.
to bring up.
So I make the motion,
If
we
you-
vote in favor that they are no larger than 1880 in footprint, and they have the contingency that they get their drainage reevaluated based on the larger footprint. Did I word that right?
If you're asking, I would suggest that you word your second condition about the square footage almost identically to the condition on the July 21st, because I think it makes it very clear that any structures are associated with that, not just the main building. That way there's no question whether the garage is in or out.
Is it there? It's right here.
Yes.
It's right here.
Do you want to separate the conditions?
Yep, I think you did. You meant those to be 2 conditions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, try this again.
Go
I make
for
a
it.
motion that we vote in favor under the condition that the building footprint area associated, what's that? That the building footprint area associated with each unit shall be no greater than 1880 square feet. And that they get their drainage site plan reevaluated based on that new footprint size.
Okay,
Correctly worded. Good.
Good job.
Thank you.
okay. Do I have a second? Open for discussion. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm not sure that we've met all of
Well,
Okay.
well, that's all right. This is part of the discussion. And which criteria?
Well, he kind of took care of one of them in the drainage, but I don't see it as a true hardship.
Why's that?
Well, you can, because in my mind, man, I was stuck at 15, I'm looking at my house. My house is 1,200 square foot house above ground. But then if I go in my basement, I technically have a 2,400 square foot house. So now in my head, I'm like, okay, well, it could be a 3,000 square foot house. In my head, I'm thinking, well, geez, limited this poor guy to 1,500 square foot house, now 1,800 square foot. But really, no, we can build a 3,000 square foot house. You can build a 4,000 square foot house, as long as it doesn't extend the footprint on the ground to 1,500 square feet.
I would think that it. Oops, sorry.
It's still a marketable product. He may have to work a little harder to do it, but we all have to do that. So,
I don't know. I think you got to build what's going to sell. I mean, you could say you could build 5-story apartment buildings, but nobody wants to live in an apartment building. So I don't know. It's a little bit.
I think there is a very, talking to hardship, that's a very good point. I mean, how much is he going to be injured? Is the developer going to be injured if they go from 15 to 18 or stay at 15? The ability to put a first floor master on a floor plan within the footprint increases the saleability.
But that's not our
No, it's
purview.
not.
Right.
But if, and my understanding, granted, we're just talking about a square footage of a footprint.
Right.
The ability to put a bedroom on the first floor with the garage
Right.
is very difficult to ridiculously hard on a 1,500 square foot footprint.
All right, so
And
I
so-
had it.
Wait,
I had a 1,492 square foot house
You can do
with a
it.
garage and a first floor master.
Yep.
So,
I mean, I'm sure it
Yeah.
obviously definitely
Yeah.
exists.
And
Yeah.
sell it. You can do
With
it.
Mike always, with the.
That's,
Right.
I think that's difficult with a 1,500 square foot footprint, with a garage. I mean, my opinion, when we moved up here,
yeah.
was my wife was gonna have a garage covered, car. And that's what we looked for. And a first floor master. Those are the bullet points in the MLS that we looked for. It makes it more likely. You can do it in 1,500 square foot. It
Right.
can be done. It is more difficult to sell it, I think.
Right, but is that our job? Our job is to determine whether it's meets the criteria, not whether something could be more marketable than others, you know what I mean? Or anything like that. Our job is to say, does it meet the criteria for the variance?
So that criteria of the hardship he would incur, as opposed to the benefit the community would see, we stayed at 1,500. Would the community see more benefit than the harm that the developer is going to possibly incur? It is somewhat of an unknown, but it's also somewhat of a known, I think. There are some known factors that go into it, that he is going to incur some hardship if it is more difficult to sell. Will it be impossible to sell? No. It'll be sold. I mean, houses in the market now are selling very quickly if you're the right type of home.
What is the core of this variance? It doesn't really have anything to do with the footprint of the house. It had to do with changing the number of units allowed within it.
Originally, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Right.
Yeah, originally.
But so I guess what I'm saying is,
So-
how did the 1,500 become
So-
part of that at the time? Why was 1,500 the number that was chosen? And how does making it 380 square feet larger significantly change that piece of it? I feel like, I don't know, I guess I don't feel like I look at them individually because they're kind of tied together. I don't know if that makes sense.
So the applicant brought up the fact that both cluster developments and mobile homes were allowed in a rural agricultural zone. That he could put, based on his lot, he could put 30 mobile homes on that lot.
Right.
And that he didn't need to, without a variance. And he could put 11 cluster homes, but he wanted to improve the offering by providing standalone housing with a garage and
Right.
cellar type
And
thing.
if he did that, he could have them any size footprint he wanted, within reason. Like, he wasn't limited by 1,500 square feet if he made the mobile homes.
Well, except for the mobile home size. He was limited to the number of mobile homes and the density.
But he could put a 30 by 40 square foot mobile home on there and then build a garage on it and be over a 1,500 square foot footprint. And that would be
Yes.
within the purview of it.
I'll understand.
It had to go through site planning board and all that stuff as well.
I'm sure there's that.
He didn't need a variance for that, I guess.
So
that's what-
he didn't need a variance to put that on, and like I said, with a certain parameter.
Yeah.
He was allowed 11 homes in cluster development. And so to relieve the hardship of being able to do it, we increased, or there was a thing to increase the size but not substantially, increase the number of homes that he could put in there, but limit the size of the footprint, because there was concern about what McMansions and whatever was going in there.
Okay.
And it was rural agricultural, and it was not in the spirit of the ordinance to put that type of home in there.
I don't see that 380 square feet, assuming that this is what gets built. I don't know how you would make sure that a ranch got built and not a McMansion, but assuming that these are what they're saying is getting built, I don't see how 380 square feet is against that spirit. And,
Does it represent a hardship?
I guess that's kind of out of opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. Is there something else you could do with it? Is there another option you could do with the land? Does the land present a problem? I mean, those were kind of when I went to my class, that's what kind of they kind of talked to.
Yeah. I don't know how anecdotal. I mean, I agree with their point that wider hallways is definitely a significant thing. I spent some time in all sorts of people's homes in my line of work, and I would definitely be in agreement that wider hallways for the elderly is a significant benefit. I don't know if that pertains to that hardship piece of it. If their goal is to sell it to that demographic, then that is certainly a selling factor. I don't know how that pans in.
You have anything else? Nope.
You do still have your motion, just to remind you.
All right, so the motion is to approve with the current conditions of 1,800 square feet footprint, as you said, and drainage, in a drainage review. Do we have any other concerns? You wanted it reviewed by the planning board?
Well, I think
The planning board will make that.
Is that on
the
the?
planning board will make that determination.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could have that as a condition if you want, but it'll happen regardless.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Okay, and is there anything else associated with the change of use review process that you brought up?
Anything else? I mean, I
So is that
guess I don't, okay. I mean, we'll, you know, agree upon some way to come before the planning board and say, hey, look, these are the changes that have been made, and the planning board will have an opportunity to either say, cool, no problem, we don't need, to talk, really, that doesn't change enough for it to warrant, taking a whole lot of steps backwards, or they'll go the other way and they'll say, no, we need to really kind of reevaluate this from the beginning. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have any other concerns, questions? So, we have a motion on the floor. You ready to vote on it? Ready to vote on it? Okay. Motion to approve zoning case 1707 with two conditions. One, as stated, limiting the square foot of the footprint to 1880 and a drainage review process as a second condition. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
Nay.
Okay. So the motion fails.
Motion fails.
Well, thank you for your time tonight.
All right.
Consideration, we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Very much.
It's the first time I couldn't avoid this. I couldn't avoid this time. Yes, we still have a couple more things. This should be fairly quick. All right. So, minutes. Minutes of July 18th, and we have two sets. April?
Huh?
Just July? Just
Oh,
July, okay.
No, just May 15th, 2018 to approve. The others are just,
Well, those are mine from last year. Okay.
or, yeah, there was some I handed out relevant to the cases. from that.
Okay. Minutes, review of the minutes.
May May 15, 2018, as written. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Any other correspondence?
He abstained, by the way. He said abstain.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Thanks.
Any other correspondence?
No, sorry.
Any other business?
Nope.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Abstain.
Aye. Vote with your feet.
I understand. Makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Nice job, Matt.
Thanks.
He did a great job.
Thank you.
I don't know what I'm doing yet.
I don't know.
You swayed his vote, oh, because he brought up the fact that it could be, and I honestly, it did me too, because I was looking at a square foot.